I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2, we will call to order the June 19th, 2025 Village Board meeting. Number 3, roll call shows all trustees present, all staff is present, and our attorney Ashley is present. 4, agenda changes. Are there any? Okay. 5, consent agenda. A, June 5th, 2025 regular board meeting minutes. B, licenses and permits as presented. And C, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, we will need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard.
Craig Dreyer, 52 Parkview Lane.
Since I only have 5 minutes, I'm going to ask Officer Barr to come up and stand next to me, please. And I'm going to ask the village board members to close their eyes, if you would trust that. He's your safety net. He's going to make sure I don't do anything stupid. Okay? So if you don't want to, don't. But I'd ask you to close your eyes. Come on, baby. Where did it go? That was my noise. Here it was. Start over. Oh, there we go. Hear that? Now imagine that running for 45 hours straight, pointed at my house. Okay? 45 hours. Then it's off overnight, and it starts up the next morning at 6:20, runs till 8:20 at night. The following morning, it starts up at 6:20 again, and runs until late in the afternoon. You know what this was running? A little small fan, about this big, a circle fan, that whoever was doing the drywall went in, and they had the fan on for 45 hours so it would dry the spackle up so that the guy could go in and paint. Never any time when that generator was running was there anybody working at that house. When somebody came in to work at that house, they shut the generator off to do their job. That generator is less than 50 yards from my bed. I work. So does my wife. So imagine not being able to sleep that first night. I called the police. It should be recorded as a noise complaint. We agreed there's nothing that could be done. So I called Nathan next morning. Nathan came out. He agreed. He said, well, you know, you have a noise ordinance. But that's only good from 7 to 10. And I was okay. Well, the next morning, when they did it at 6:18, and the next morning when they did it at 6:20, that to me is loud and unnecessary. That borders on disturbing the peace. Okay? Now, go look up on Amazon. Look for a muffler for generators. Guess how much they cost? $125. You can build a containment around it to muffle that noise. I just went over the other day. There's another builder there. He's running a generator. It's a little Honda one. Quiet. Can't even hear it. Went over and asked him, can you run that fan with that little generator? He says, yeah, not a problem. Now, next subject, I would invite you to take a walk around the perimeter of the subdivision. Okay? Just take a look around. Go look by the fences, and you'll see how much garbage is from that subdivision is around all of the neighbors. Okay? I try to be a good neighbor. Whoever's doing that subdivision, they're a bad neighbor. All right? This is the reason why you need construction ordinances, or on the building permit, you need to have this stuff in here. Decibel levels allowed for generators. Why are they running generators anyway? Where's the power? Isn't that like the second thing that goes in after you do a basement and you hook up power? What's going on? So this guy has free reign to do whatever he wants over there. In the meantime, citizens like me and the neighbors that face that generator, because I went over and talked to some of the other ones, we can't even sit outside. all right? That's how bad it is. So I would ask that make some rules or make some ordinances when you talk about someone coming in for a building permit. Here are the things that you can and can't do, thinking about the citizens that already pay taxes in this village, which is me. Not the ones that are coming in, but the ones that are impacted by it. So I would ask you to do that. Okay? Third one is, I'd like to know who the weed commissioner is. Did a little digging. So you have your ordinance 2626. I actually saw it in the Village Voice, got me to looking at it. There's a little blurb there. Dug a little deeper. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff. R1? How long has that been R1?
Years.
Year. All right, so this time last year. What was it before that?
It's been R1 ever since I've been here, since 20.
Okay, so do you know that the ordinance says R1, that someone's supposed to keep the weeds mowed 25 feet back from the property lines? All right, do you know the last time that that was done?
The other day.
That was done last year when the guy decided he was gonna do the village. Do you know how many thistle I picked out of my yard this spring? 6 5-gallon buckets pushed down with thistle. Go look at the neighbors. Go walk their yards with your bare feet. And see if you don't like stepping on thistle. I certainly don't. So you can go talk to Barry Mulroy, you can talk to the neighbors left and right, you can talk to my neighbors across the road from me. You can go over and just take a look and say all of the thistle that's in their yard. I'm not saying it all will disappear, but if it's mowed regularly, and the ordinance says anything over 8 inches needs to be mowed. Okay? Trying to be a good neighbor here, but I'm reaching my limit. Fourth thing, that sign that's facing my property, that's not a construction sign. That's a real estate sign. In the developer's agreement, here's my quarter. Here's my open records request. I would like to see the application for temporary sign permit for that development. According to the builder's permit that's required. I'd like to see it because they were supposed to fill out some stuff, how long it's supposed to be there. You know, I sent you a message asking how long it's going to be there. I still don't get, the response that I got from you was that basically if I don't like it, here's a state statute that I can use to challenge it. What was that? Did you look at the village ordinances? Did you know that if there are sign ordinances, that the state has one and the village has one, and the village is more restrictive? Which one you follow? You follow the most restrictive, unless it conflicts with the state. So if the state said you can only have a 10 square foot sign, but the village had an ordinance that said I could have a 25 square foot sign, the state would win. We have just the opposite problem here. Our sign ordinances are more restrictive. That is a temporary sign. It's a temporary real estate sign. I would offer up that according to statute, and I got it right here, the Wisconsin Trans Statute 201-17, that any signs, subdivision signs, which would constitute where it says promotes new model construction, model homes, price ranges, check off 3, that if a sign is visible from a state highway, which Highway 15 is, it must also comply with Wisconsin Trans 201.17, which allows up to 32 square feet, prohibits flashing and moving parts. So what I would offer up, that not only is the sign over here that I'm worried about and concerned about, because every time I come outside, that's what I see. The one next to the highway is illegal as well. So I would ask the village board to relook at your ordinances, to look at the state statutes. I have some here if you want to look at them, and enforce the ordinances that you're supposed to enforce. Weed control, signs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Corin,
Is there anyone else?
Corin Robertson, 111 South Nash Street. Hi. Good job. Seriously. Okay. I'm not gonna be as, I don't have as much as this gentleman does, but I do have a concern. I live right on the corner where the lights are, on Main Street in Nash. And forever, well, I'm just gonna read what I wrote to the Outagamie Highway Department and I'll wrap it up. I'm here today as a concerned citizen to discuss the intersection of Nash Street and Main Street in Hortonville, Wisconsin. When I moved here 3 years ago, there was a set of working stoplights and there was a crosswalk. Since then, we just have flashing red lights, okay? Sorry, I'm a little nervous, you guys are all staring at me, as you should be. Okay, in the last year or longer, this intersection has been on flashing red mode, no working pedestrian crossing. I live right in the midst of this, and every day I witness carelessness and close calls. There's a four-way stop with flashing red lights, an alley parking lot that flows into Nash Street, a gas station that also flows into Main Street and Nash Street. That being said, there's also many children, adults on foot, bicycles, skateboards, scooters, roller skates, you name it, and they have to play chicken with this intersection on a daily. Last year, we had a kid hit in that intersection. I hope this never happens again. The best way to prevent this is by having a working pedestrian crosswalk and light. The community needs to stay safe. And I live there and I see it every day. Every single day, people don't know how to use a four-way stop. I almost got hit last week when it was my turn to go by somebody that just wanted to fly through. Also, when kids walk to school, which our kids do, we do have a crossing guard, which is great. But at the same point in time, to hit a button to walk across the road would be great. I would really like to see that working again. I know that we're gonna have construction going through, and that's gonna change everything. But for the time being, why can't we have a light that works? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? 7, committee reports. A, library board. Carrie?
We're still looking for another board member. They have to be within the village, so there's still an opening if anyone knows anyone that wants to join. And we are reviewing policies that haven't been reviewed in like 10 years. One specifically was hiring policy, so we're going over that. And each month there are processes and policies like the computer policy and different things that don't really have any kind of formal anything out there for them. So we're going to come up with that and work on that every month. So we're going to be busy.
Any questions for Carrie? Okay, we'll go to 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. A, discussion and possible action on John Street Fountain Court project bids.
Give me 2 seconds here.
There's nothing in the packet here.
Nope, we just came in this morning. Last page is the breakdown.
So it's kind of hard to see, but we have the bids for both projects. Lowest bid was Northeast Asphalt, total cost at $247,435.15.
So this is for a mill and overlay on John Street, and then a mill and overlay on Fountain Court with an additional storm sewer system, mini storm sewer system to be put in around the edge of Fountain Court to catch people's sump pumps, because they basically are in a spring, and their sump pumps run almost 24/7. So this would take that water instead of it going into their yards and ultimately ending up on the street into our storm sewer system and into the river.
Currently, what's been happening is the water's pumping so quickly, it's basically eroding the road completely. With the freeze-thaw cycles too, has been a problem. So the road is not in a great condition compared to when all the other roads around there were put in. So if we don't do anything about it, basically it's just gonna get worse and worse.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the full dollar amount. I've got 247 is what I wrote down, and then I didn't catch the rest.
247, 435, 15.
And that was with which contractor?
Northeast Asphalt.
Okay.
Who's doing the storm sewer portion of it? Is there a sub on that?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look through all their bid documents. It would be on. It would be in this part.
Trying to go up its freedom. Emil, I would guess, right?
Okay, just so it's somebody that we're familiar with and, yeah.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
So, just FYI, this is a slight overestimated by about 47,000. So, there's 200,000 in the CIP for these projects. We have about 13,000 in some cutting stuff that are, or not the cutting, the stormwater line. Basically, the plan would be to use about 36,000 of reserve funds from stormwater reserve fund. There's about 76,000 in now. So we'd take about 36 of that, and then a few other line items that we are not going to use the rest of the year. That would be an amendment coming to the board at the next meeting, basically for amending that budget, those budget line items. But just kind of wanted to make sure that was known.
Who else bid this?
MCC, and I can't remember the third one.
Third one, I think, was
Third one I didn't recognize.
Highway Landscapers, Inc.
Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion.
I guess my only question is, could that document be added to, like, so where you have agendas and minutes?
It was, yeah, it was supposed
Additional
to be,
documents?
we have a file for additional documents, it wasn't uploaded.
Okay, that way, in case there's any question of where the bids came in, that it's right out there in the public?
Yep.
Yeah.
When's it gonna be done? The Fountain Court one can start a little bit earlier, but we have it written in that they have to wait until, I think it's the first week of September before they can start on John Street, just to get through all the baseball tournaments. We don't have it closed down when they're trying to have a tournament at Auburn.
Okay.
You had mentioned in the last meeting with regards to John Street possibly getting sidewalks at some point. Would that change that road width? Like, are we redoing the road? So adding sidewalks is just simply adding sidewalks later. It's not like we're redesigning that.
This is just to take care of all the potholes and the asphalt that's ripping up and everywhere.
Yeah.
Basically grind it down a little bit and then put it back down.
I'll make a motion to approve the John Street Fountain Court project from Northeast Asphalt in the amount of $247,435.15.
Second.
Roll call. Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. B, discussion and possible action on resolution R-12-25, amending R-7-11, amendment pool credit.
So, basically the changes in this are two smaller ones. One is basically saying that water-only meters they don't qualify for basically the sewer credit. And then the other thing is, what we've been having is we'd have someone call in saying they're refilling their pool for the year, and then just say the size of the pool, because that's allowed based on our current resolution. So if you have a 3,000 or a 5,000 gallon pool, you'd say that, even though maybe you're only filling 2,000 gallons of it. So then when we do our numbers to go through, they would end up getting a larger credit than what they would have normally qualified for. So basically this gets rid of that request of the size of the dimension of the pool, and actually goes off of what's actually refilled.
And it's an or that they do the size and dimensions of the
It
pool?
was.
Or.
It's turning to just,
Okay,
it's only based on or filling.
Actual usage on the meter.
actual, okay. Is there, so like with the meter reading, are they calling with the numbers? Is that something that they can view? Can people see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And it can be verified too in our office, so that we get trackings as well. For most of them.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve R-12-25, amending R-7-11, for pool credit.
I'll second.
Roll call. Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. C, discussion and possible action, reimbursement for stormwater expansion as part of Terrace Manor subdivision.
This was part of the developer's agreement. If you don't remember, we had when we redid Grandview at that time, there was a need to push the stormwater from the subdivision above somewhere, and at that time, they just put it in the middle of that field. So basically, when anyone came in, the idea was that we still have to pay for that to be changed. So we had it be part of that contract for when that developer put it in. He had to upsize in order to accommodate that flow of water. This was the cost. Cost them about $74. And there's a max in our contract with him that I believe is around $71,000 is all that the village would pay out max, because that was our estimate at the time when we had our engineers look at it too. So they're just asking for the reimbursement at this time. So here's more details kind of what they did with it.
So is this estimate for the full stormwater, or just the difference in expenses
It
for
was the
expansion?
difference in the expenses for the upsizing. So the agreement reimbursement was capped at $71,360.
And that's what they're asking for?
That's what, the total cost was 74,000 something, but they're asking for the reimbursement amount that we agreed to.
So what was that amount? 71 what?
$71,360.
Any questions?
And we have that in like CIP, or we have that somewhere, where's the,
It's TID, so TID 3 is actually gonna fund that. It'll probably come back for a loan, is how the TID's gonna fund it, so mid-July.
I'll make a motion to approve reimbursement for stormwater expansion as part of the Terrace Manor subdivision, in the amount of $71,360.
Second. Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. D, discussion and possible action on Alonzo Park refund policy.
So the main thing we changed in here is kind of cleared up what the policy is, and what it's not. We had someone who basically canceled like 2 days before because of rain, and was requesting a refund because it was gonna be wet. I get the use of a playground isn't available then, but you're renting the shelter for the shelter, not necessarily the playground, so the idea was to change that policy to something a little more stronger, that would require them to give us notice. I think it's 30 days. We took this from another community. 30 days prior to the scheduled reservation of the full for the full reservation fee.
That they forfeit.
Yeah.
I have no problem with the 30 days. I mean, I understand. I think if you reserve it, and you could have reserved it a year ahead of time, and if it's gonna rain, you can't know that, but, yeah, there's no way you could know it, but to cancel, then it took maybe a reservation away from somebody who would have taken it,
Right.
even if it was raining.
I'll make a motion to approve the modification of the Alonzo Park refund policy as presented.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. E, discussion and possible action on Alonzo Park parking lot and entrance reconstruction project.
Give me one more second here. That's something you could offload quick.
Yours not working or what?
Yeah, my email's not working here, so. What's next over there? Do you want to move on to H and then come back, and I'll just go
Sure.
upload it quick?
We can do that.
I apologize.
Or you wanna do F?
No, H.
You wanna go to
Back to the
H?
top, yeah,
Okay,
because those are Aaron's reimbursement requests.
okay. Discussion and possible action on Robert J. Immel excavating invoice for emergency water leak hydrant replacement.
So we had a water leak at the intersection of Oak Street and John Street. And when they started excavating, they took it back to the hydrant, found out that there was issues with the hydrant there too, which was really, really old. So we just approved them to fix the water leak and replace the hydrant at the same time.
Does anyone have questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
Had to be one of the oldest in the building.
You've got 2 invoices in here.
Yep,
Great.
there's that's another project.
Oh,
This the MO one?
This
This
is the
is-
MO1 for 17.
17.
845.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoice from Robert J. Immel Excavating for the emergency water leak hydrant replacement in the amount of $17,845.79.
Second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. I, discussion and possible action on Robert J. Immel excavation invoice for emergency repair of sinkhole.
So this was a sinkhole that developed at Birch Street and Michael Richter Way. And when we looked down into the sinkhole, we could see that our storm sewer had been compromised when We Energies put a line through. So they basically busted a hole through the bottom of the storm sewer that let water come out, which then took all the materials from above and poured it out, and then the asphalt basically collapsed on top of it. One good thing about this one is we do have photo evidence that shows their line when it went through, rupturing our storm sewer, and they've agreed to reimburse us for this. But the way that we're gonna go about it is to pay ML and then ask them for a reimbursement back to the We Energies.
Do we have any, like, payroll that can be added to that reimbursement of any of the diagnostic stuff, or was this, Immels did 100% of this work?
MLs did 100% of the work. Our guys took a picture in the hole, but
Okay, but it's not like they took time and,
yeah, we didn't like televise it or anything like that.
I'll make a motion to approve the Robert J. Himmel excavating invoice for excavation of emergency repair of the sinkhole in the amount of $5,194.06.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. J, discussion and possible action on Great Lakes TV seal invoice for emergency crack filling on the dam.
So this invoice just came in for work that got done this year. It was actually supposed to be scheduled for last year. We got a request from the DNR to do dam investigation, which we normally do every 2 years, but because it was such a wet year and I'm forgetting the community whose dam blew out.
Concerns.
Yeah. So we had one done. It came back on September 30th with a recommendation that we fill some cracks in the dam on the north wall where seepage was starting to come through. So we hired Great Lakes to do it. It then, by the time that they could get in there, got too cold to do it. So they did it, came back and did it this spring. And it looks good, everything. They came back a couple days after and we kind of looked at it. It's basically kind of like an expanding foam type substance that they put in there that filled the crack and there's nothing seeping through.
So this isn't anything new. This is what we talked about last year, I think.
It was last year.
It's not an emergency then?
Well, it didn't come in front of the board,
Okay,
so it is over 5,000. But we
okay,
never got the invoice until this year because they didn't do it last year.
okay. Yeah, no, I get it,
Make a motion to approve the Great Lakes TV seal quote for the invoice for the emergency crack filling on the dam, amount of $6,314.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. K, K, discussion and possible action on B&M emergency VFD replacement for digester blower.
So we had one of our 3 digester blowers go out a week or 2 ago, and we approved B&M to come in and fix it. Basically, when one of those blowers go down, we're down to 2 blowers doing the work of 3, and that puts a lot of stress on our system. So they came in like the last week of May and got that back up and running for us.
Is it the $285?
No.
15,000. Right?
Here.
7383?
Nope.
15,599.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like the other number better.
Yeah, that's a better number.
That was their diagnostic number.
So they haven't done this, or they did?
They did do that.
They did this.
So is it the 15,599 plus
Yes.
the 285, or is that 285 in there?
No, the 285 wasn't supposed to be in there.
I'll make a motion to approve the B&M emergency VFD replacement for digester blower in the amount of $15,599.
Second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. L, discussion and possible action on B&M emergency VFD replacement for well number 2.
So this is our VFD for well number 2 went down right before the splash pad was about to come online, and people were going to start using water for pool credits. So we hired B&M to come in and replace it, and they got it done on May 27th, 3 days before the splash pad opened. So we would make sure we had both wells up and running when we started pulling all that extra water.
Any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion.
Is that full amount, the 7383 then?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve invoice 12833 in the amount of $7,383 for B&M Technical Services.
The second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. M, discussion and possible action on renewal of siren contract.
I'll take this one. I know it came up recently at a board meeting with some NOAA radios being out and just the concern of the siren. And so just got a 2-year contract for the maintenance, $667. First year is $375 and second year is $256. It's a little higher the first year because they do maintenance on both the head and the controls. Second year just the controls, but $667 for the 2-year maintenance quote.
Is
Any
this just a
questions?
renewal? Okay.
Is it gonna work?
Better.
I know, I'm serious. Last year we heard siren every meeting for, 5 months.
Yeah.
So
It works.
I just wanna make sure it's gonna work. I don't care about.
It's gonna work. I do know that they mentioned in the last one that there's a battery backup in there and that we may wanna look at that next year, but we were good yet this year, so there may be a cost there, but not something we need to be concerned about this year.
Okay.
Well, and considering that it always was made like when they turned this over to the municipality, the cost was so high, I'm actually kind of surprised to
So
see
is I.
$667. Okay.
Yeah.
I will make a motion in the amount of $667 to Sheboygan Warning Systems.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Did you get it to work, Nathan?
Yes. So I think The question that we only want answered is just basically whether or not you guys are, kinda good with the design. We did get the amendment to our grant that we didn't think we'd get. So by the year 2027, we have to have it expensed. They gave us up to $400,000 and something. This project is estimated at $775. A large part of that, like $325,000, is for the intersection, to get new lights and resituated. So the idea is to work with the county on that earlier than expected, so rather than waiting until 2027 and reconstructing that area then, we're gonna talk to them and try to get them to do it earlier, and kind of help us with the funding of that, portion of it.
So you're gonna get rid of the other driveway?
Yep.
Okay.
Basically, we'd have one driveway that would add in from Warner Street, 4 ways.
Using the stoplights there.
Yep. And then just basically, it's pretty much paving where we have parking now.
And a bunch of additional parking.
And this fits into the overall park plan that we've designed at this point?
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing with that park plan, it has some things in it that didn't have knowledge of wetlands and all this other stuff, so this is fine with it. It's just, there is, like, the band shell design initially was gonna be kind of in the empty lot to the right, which is all wetlands, so I don't know if that would ever be a thing in the future. So there's things like that that are affected in general, but I don't know.
And pretending that all those things are gonna go in, that would not affect, matches that plan, pretending.
I don't know if it matches it exactly. I'd have to look back at it. I think that one had a different layout because it had, I think, a longer parking lot kind of going in, from my memory.
I've got a question about, so I'm all for removing that second driveway because it does make it confusing, but my question is emergency vehicles. It looks like there's like a grassy area, like a median sort of thing in there.
Mm-hmm. Do you want it removed?
I'm not asking for that. What I'm trying to say is if an emergency, like a fire truck or a larger, like ambulance, anything had to pull in there, is there a way that one entrance could be blocked off to the public, but still available for emergency use only? So that second driveway there, so that there's a loop. If I'm an emergency vehicle, how am I pulling in there and am I backing up? What am I doing?
Mm.
Is there a way to keep that culvert or whatever, I don't even know if it's a culvert there, to keep that entrance as a non-use, but still somehow gated off where an emergency vehicle could still get in there? I don't know how often it would be used, but that's what I think about. And I also think about like the plans we had talked about, that there could be like larger trucks and that sort of thing. I just worry more about if an emergency vehicle pulls in there, how are they getting out?
Get back into our access to the well and then come back out.
Yeah.
Sometimes easier said than done.
That's my only concern. When I look at that, I like the aesthetics of the grassy part there, right? Because that, it slows traffic down and you're entering a park.
You could lose those two or three
I mean, you
stalls
could
right
always keep this,
Or it wouldn't necessarily need to be paved, but still keep the parking stall, or I don't know how you would do that.
there. You'd have to get rid of the
You'd have to get rid of the
stalls
parking
because
stalls,
you have
yeah.
to make people not park there just
Right.
in case.
I mean, it would have to be open, but you could put a gate across that would prevent someone from just pulling in through there
Yeah,
or leaving, and unless it's like the fire department. or
I'm not
someone.
trying to be a thorn. I'm just
No,
trying
I mean,
to
it's
think
like-
of like the emergency vehicle aspect of it. I think when we design roads and we do all these streets, we always make sure that there's a cul-de-sac, big enough that they can turn around. And now we have potential for emergency vehicles to come for, like, I don't want to say a fire, but it could be anything. But then they would have to back up. And then now you've got an emergency vehicle.
Depending how busy the park is,
Yeah.
it's not a whole lot of.
Yeah. While
we're-
we're talking about it, this is the time to bring it up.
Yep, exactly.
Well, and this is just a concept too.
Not engineered.
It hasn't been engineered yet. That's something that we could relay to our engineers to make sure that they
And,
account for that.
and for safety reasons, I understand, I personally love the idea of removing the extra driveway, because I think then you're not gonna get people driving through there, and for safety with kids and that sort of thing, but I worry more about like an emergency vehicle, or multiple emergency vehicles. You've got a police car, possibly an ambulance, fire truck, maybe another, what am I
Oh,
am I being crazy here, or is this,
No,
this is
no, I
legit?
think it's, like you said, it's a good point. I just don't know how you, even when I think about access, gating and what that looks like, then does that restrict our access too? Like, when you get there, like, what does that look
Yeah.
like? So,
It'd be an exit.
Yeah, it's an
Not
exit
an
only.
exit.
That would be an exit only, so you'd come in through the normal entry, but
Sure.
to get out, you'd go out the.
sure.
It's not, yeah, I mean, I just look at that and go, if I'm a fire truck,
Mhm.
But you have a police car named those behind you, what do you?
yeah, what do you do? Jeff,
We should probably
you were on the fire
involve
department,
Jack
right?
with this.
Yeah,
If you,
I would,
mean, if you had
would
people in
involve
there,
the chief and see
I
what
would
he
pull
has
on the
to
road
say.
and block the road instead of pulling
You
there
know.
with all the kids around. You just have full hose fire and full equipment, but then you're working off the road, that's another danger in itself.
Mhm. I'm just trying to think of, because I know when we look at cul-de-sacs, or we look at
And
certain
I would not want to
subdivisions.
back a fire truck up that access road with all those kids running around.
No. People talking.
Well, and even if you added maybe an additional lane or enough to get through off where your new entry point is gonna be with that grass area, that striped, kind of almost like a fire lane of sorts that gives us a access point in there that people can park where they're not on the road. I don't know. I mean, I think no matter what, it's gonna be really difficult to get around in there and turn around with the way the parking is and, like you said, the amount of kids that are in there. I think it's a valid point, though.
I can bring
Yeah,
it to the chief
Nathan will
and
talk to Jack.
get his.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, I just know that when we look at streets, that's what we're talking about. If we're looking at a park where there's the potential for a medical emergency, we need,
How many
This-
stalls are in there right now? That drawing, how many stalls? Do we know?
In the back,
In total, what are the total stalls that you've created using this?
67.
That's amazing.
One thing, I know this is just a concept, but when we look at where that new entryway is gonna be, is there a reason that we wouldn't put that directly across from Warner Street? Because I think the concern that I've seen down there is that when folks are coming down Warner Street, they get to the stoplight, they think they can take a
should-
kind of a right a little bit, because they can turn right on red, and then go in there, like, could we push that more towards the center of Warner Street, so that it feels very controlled
it
fully
feels
by
like
the
the
lights?
intersection.
I think
Yes.
it's shifted a little because of like the angle that Warren Street comes in on. I think because that's what we told them, but they also might have it this way. It might just be to prevent excessive underground stuff that we have to
Sure.
move.
Or it might have gotten another parking stall out of it. I would rather give up our parking stall, but make that intersection,
I don't think that.
No?
I think it had to deal with moving
Infrastructure.
poles.
Okay. I'm just thinking with where the
But-
crosswalks are and
Mhm.
how people turn, it would be almost nicer to pull
It
that
is
in.
moved over than what it is
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can tell, because it's like you said now, well, yeah, you can see on the diagram.
It's
there.
something we can write in the notes too and give to them, and if they say that it's for a reason, they can let us know what the cost difference is, if it makes sense, or if it's gonna be off a little bit, or
Sure.
what. I agree.
And yeah, and then I would talk to Jack about that grassy, if that would make it difficult to turn in.
Mhm.
And then also, as far as the
Other exit.
how navigable is it once they're in there?
You're also gonna have the trail there too, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. A lot of moving parts.
Well, I meant, you guys saying you don't wanna park the see vehicles on the road, but literally you have a paved trail right there that's not on the road and it's not in the parking lot as well.
True. 10-foot wide.
I mean, it's multimodal, it's not, you know, it's not meant for driving on, but.
Yeah,
emergency
in an
vehicles,
emergency,
you can
if you're able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, so it's off the road, out of the parking lot.
They still
you know,
gotta
worry
be
about
up, they
turning
still have to
around,
get
you're-
out of it though. I mean, it's one thing to pull in and go onto the thing, but they still gotta get out of it. Right? I mean, if they're lined up, you've got 3 in a row, you still gotta be able to get, I still like the idea of keeping the other for emergency purposes only. Even if they did park on that thing, I think it would be,
If you leave the skirt there, then they just drive out.
yes.
Right out.
As long as there's a way, as long as there's a way to do it, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to leave the whole driveway, you can just leave the skirt, the break in the curb there. I mean, you don't have to, and then nobody's tempted to drive on it, cause it's just grass and
Right,
there's just no curb there.
right.
But you'd have to, the parking stalls would need to be configured in a way.
Well, like, let's get Jack to look at it.
Yeah, I
and-
think
and
the
say-
fire department
He's got
will
the
get
I
it.
mean,
biggest
it's just an
vehicle.
idea, just to throw out when you
I
talk
mean, that's a
about
good
it,
idea.
it's not, there's another option.
Both
available
options.
there.
Sorry to throw a wrench in there,
You'd
but
be blocking
This
bikes.
is the time to bring this
Yeah,
stuff up right
I'd
now.
rather do it
before
now
it's
than
just-
later.
Go through all the design and stuff
Right.
like that.
Mhm.
How long before we could get the commitment from the county for reimbursement on?
I don't know, we're meeting with them on the 9th, so far it looks like, of July. I don't know, we'll see.
I just hate to make the commitment on it and then find out that,
Well, if they're not gonna do it, then we gotta look at what we can do for our we could do our parking lot still and just not do the entrance. And I think,
Sucks not to do it together.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's,
Piece-wise.
I just don't know, he was preemptively like warning me that they don't necessarily have the funds, and I'm, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I think you can probably move some things around, and it's still the same year for them, so I don't know. We'll see. I think they'll work with us and try to work it out, because it'll benefit them too, so that it's not as much for them.
when was this, July what, tentative?
July 9th. So hopefully by the next meeting the village board has, we'd have an answer. So,
Is everyone good? Or did you think of anything else? No? Okay, then we will move to F. Small Business Development Grant Agreement between the Village of Hortonville and the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation.
so this is the grant we got for the downtown businesses. And WEDC basically has the same agreement for everyone. I sent it off to our legal counsel to review, and we kind of discussed that. I'll just let you kind of discuss kind of the issues that we see with it, but they might not change anything.
Yeah, so I've seen this agreement before in other communities. Typically, the response from WEDC on any changes is it's kind of take it or leave it. It's not written in a way that makes sense for a municipality to be the recipient as they're defined here. Really what they're expecting is for you to step into the shoes of the person who's taking on that work and to assure that all of the accounting and auditing occurs in the way that they would expect. They want to know that they can come back and get the money from you rather than trying to chase down all of these other entities that you might be working with. I think that the risk on these projects is minimal compared to the risk on some other projects that we've seen with the same agreement. It's not something that I would say from a legal standpoint, I feel totally comfortable with, but I think practically speaking, you're unlikely to run into any significant issues with them. I made a couple of proposed red line changes today that I would like to send back and see if they would be willing to accept those. I think the most important being redefining what they have for the term project, to really specify that for us, the project is our program. It's not necessarily any project that a business owner is taking on, because I think that eliminates some of the confusion that otherwise, if there were to be an issue, could easily be read into this agreement. Again, because it's really not meant for a municipality to be signing. It's just their one standard agreement that they offer to anyone who's receiving these kinds of funds.
So then, help me out, because I was reading this, and so is there then a subsequent agreement than we have with a business owner?
Yeah, I think that you should.
It makes you like a contractor or subcontractor situation, right?
Mhm.
Like, you're managing that they're using the money that you're giving them because you have to provide that documentation back. Is that what I understood? So the municipality, Hortonville, we would disperse funds to whomever, right, based on these individual grants. And then we would have to manage what they did so that we can provide proof back. We are the middleman between the two.
Yeah, but the way that the agreement is written, that's how it works. I don't know that it's so simple as like, you will be the middleman, and if something goes wrong with that person's project,
We'll go after them.
We'll
Now
go
it's
after
we'll
them.
go after you
That's
because
not
it's
how it's
easier.
gonna work.
So then, okay, let's just role play. I'm a business owner and I would like funding for my facade. I'm gonna have some sort of application
Mhm.
through the village, right?
We have one already ready.
Yeah, we kinda have like a
That's what-
facade loan, right?
Well, I had to create it
Okay.
in order to send it in the application,
Okay.
to get the grant,
So then I'm required then quarterly, yearly, or whatever, to provide information to the village, and then the village then funnels that along with all of everybody else's information, and that's what's reportable to.
So you submit what you wanna do to the Economic Development Committee.
Okay.
That committee will review all the applications and figure out what we're gonna fund out of those
Okay.
applications. And then when you do the work, you submit us the invoices for that work, we review it, make sure the work is done, and then we would basically forward that to WEDC. They would then reimburse us for the amount, and then we would potentially give it to the resident. to
Who
the
here
business
on staff is doing that? So obviously, I'm thinking that you or building inspector, somebody is doing to check to see if the work was done that was in that application. But then who's doing that reporting or trying to get that
So
reimbursement back?
that would actually probably be done, the submittal to probably gonna be done through MSA.
Okay.
Who helped us write the grant.
So it's not like we're taking our village staff and saying, here's this program, you're now the admin about on this. We would hire like MSA or somebody to
To do the
that.
submittals, I mean, it is a little bit more work for me, but it's not much different in what we would be doing with a facade loan.
Okay. Do you understand kind of like,
Yeah.
so like I'm a business owner and I've got my checklist of things that I need to provide, and I do that. But then if there's more in-depth questions, then MSA could also help with that, to help them do the proper paperwork to get that reimbursement.
So our paperwork's fairly simple. It's the receipts, and then we just follow up and make sure that everything was done.
Okay.
And then we submit that to WEDC. There is an example, obviously, at the end of what their submittal looks like, but it,
And basically,
It's-
that's what we've always done in the
Right.
past.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we're not
Yeah.
dumping like a big program onto Janie and saying, here you go,
Mhm.
just, that
Yeah.
there's lifelines out there.
her only aspect would be basically having to, we'd have to sign up for that bill.com, which is how they transfer the
Okay.
funds out.
Okay.
And we'd have to set up a new bank account. There is some fun stuff that we have to do, reporting.
Fund or fun stuff?
Both.
There's fun in fun.
So it's not like she doesn't have anything with this. There is a little extra work to be done. I don't think it's substantial enough to deny the grant.
No.
I think it's a huge benefit for us, and
I mean, I think the biggest, as long as that order of operations remains in place, which it will, or it should, for that kind of a project, I think that really insulates you from a lot of the potential exposure for liability if something goes wrong on the back end.
Yeah.
I've struggled with this agreement on other projects where we're talking about multi-million-dollar projects that are being taken on by like the friends of whatever, you know, revitalization of large downtown buildings, and in those instances, the municipality acting as a middleman not only for larger sums, but very complex projects where we're worried about whether those individuals actually have the financial ability to back what they're planning to do. Now you're sort of standing in the place of a developer. That, for me, is very scary. So it's the same agreement that I think, again, it's inappropriate, but the risk here is much, much lower than it would be on a project like that. And so, you know, from a legal standpoint, I don't like it. From a practical standpoint, I'm not gonna stand in the way so long as it's being handled, you know, and like I said, with that order of operations to protect you guys from.
Yeah, that's what I worry about.
we have till the June 30th is the submittal deadline.
Well, I have no problem with it, I just wanna make sure
I
we
just
have.
wanna let everyone know that that's kind of why we're not having a little more back and forth with them, to try to get them to.
Okay,
So I think realistically, the project manager was out today and tomorrow and won't be back till next week. So I think the idea is for the board, if they're okay with it, to okay it as presented. I think Ashley and myself will try to get it a little more favorable, but we don't know if that'll happen. So any updated one, we would probably send out to the board after the fact, but
okay.
I've just got one question. Are we gonna have to set up an approval committee then for each one of these? And is there a maximum amount did we talk about?
So, the committee is all done through the Economic Development Committee, which has 2 of our board members on it. They usually never meet, except for facade loans typically. The max is the $50,000 max I put on there, just because I wanted to make sure that if there was like a very large project that would have a huge impact on the downtown, that just look, you know, would bring people in, it might be something that the committee could go to do. But in that application, we also specified that our ideal would be to spread the money around as much as possible to have the biggest impact. And ideally, we'd like to see grants between 15 to 20,000 potentially, but whatever we can get done. And it might be something where we work with a few of them if they do a larger request, so that we say, well, can we cover 80% and you cover the other 20, stuff like that, to try to get the biggest.
And I think it's limited to the downtown zoning district, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So what are you actually looking for tonight? Because there's nothing to actually,
Well, I guess approval for the development grant agreement as presented. Like I said, I think the attorney and I can try to maybe get a few things changed, but the only things we'd get changed would be more beneficial to us. So, to me, it would make sense to, if you guys are okay with it, to be okay with it as presented, or not at all.
So how do we do that if you're potentially gonna make changes to it? Because if we just agree to this, then we have to come back and,
I think
Do
you
it
could
again.
just do it, approve it as presented, subject to any changes recommended by the village attorney and approved by WEDC.
I'll make a motion to approve the small business development grant agreement between the village of Hortonville and WEDC as presented. Lost it.
Pending.
Pending any changes recommended by legal counsel and approved by the village administrator and WEDC.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. G, discussion and possible action on 458 North Crest Street, CSM.
Shoot, we don't have it in the agenda, do we?
No, but it's in the P and Z from the other day.
That's right. Oh, was it?
I have mine. from the-
I can show it, I apologize,
Should I pass it around?
yeah, that's fine, I can hand do it on the map,
Pass it around.
otherwise I can pull it up from my email too, in a second here. I don't know what's better, to show you the GIS map first, or, let's try that.
So, the only portion that's really being changed is between these two parcels. As you can kind of see, their patio comes out a little past the property line. So when this property owner bought the property, they wanted that to be changed so that it's not going over. So basically it kind of zigs and zags here, to allow for the property to stay with that current property owner.
I'll show you the CSM here, I think I can grab it from my email, if it's working. It's a map editor.
Is that in the section right there? Okay.
It wasn't in
Of course, it's
Just went through planning and zoning.
This went through planning and zoning,
That's fine.
a week ago. There was no questions, it was a very short meeting. Because the property is really between the two property owners, there wasn't any concern for like dividing of parcels or anything like that. No easements to deal with. So it's kind of hard to see at this angle, but those are the two lots and the property that's being changed, so.
Any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion to accept the CSM.
I'll make a motion to accept the CSM of 458 North Crest Street.
I'll second. Or Jane can too. Jane seconded it.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay, I think we went through them all, so we will go to 10, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer, Jane.
My report was in the packet, and so was the first quarter financials for water, sewer, and village. I apologize, it's a little late, but better late than never.
Any questions for Jane? Okay, we'll move to B, director of public works, Aaron.
My report was in the packet, just kind of a FYI, we are renting a roller for next week, we'll have it all week. Doing some patching that needs to happen in the village and patching some potholes. I guess if there's anything that any of you know of that it's really been bothering you, shoot me an email with it, and we'll make sure we get that done too. But we've been driving around kind of making a list of the worst offenders, and we're gonna try to get to as many as we can in 1 week.
Any questions for Aaron? Okay, we'll move to C, Police Chief Brian.
Reports in the packet. One thing I want to add, I know you've been seeing the RTF for the Rescue Task Force training, you know, for a few months here in my report. And we had a training event last night. This is something coordinated between the fire department, EMS, and police, and something that we haven't actually trained on in about 6 or 7 years. It's been talked about in the works. There's been a lot of equipment purchased for EMS in the form of ballistic vests, and so I think all three groups are pretty excited to move forward with the training events. We've got a small scale event next week, and then a planned Kakana event, large scale in July, but kind of talking about maybe taking that on ourselves and doing some training here in Hortonville. So I think all groups are really looking forward to getting that training.
Any questions for Brian?
The part-time,
Yeah, so we are, I've got the backgrounds on, I've got a psychological evaluation set up for the 27th. Everything's moving forward as planned. Yeah.
Okay, we'll move to D, Library Director, Ally.
Not a formal report in the packet, but summer program registration opened last week with programming starting this week. And within 10 business days of us opening our registration, before the meeting I counted 783 people registered. We make a tally, so we have to count different age groups for the statistics for the state. 783 in 10 days is just mind-blowing, because last year I think we were about 1,200 people total for the whole summer. So we're really kicking it into high gear. We have 21 prize baskets, and over 200 hours worth of reading has been turned in this week alone. Just very, very busy. So trying to practice self-care as a staff because summer's our busiest time. So very awesome to see our new employee is settling in very well and tackling summer like a champ. So yeah, nothing but good stuff going on.
Good.
Yeah.
Any questions for Ally? Okay, we'll move to E, Attorney Ashley. Okay. F, Administrator Nathan.
I got a report in the packet, and kind of have a, next week I will be meeting with the attorney to kind of go over some of this zoning proposed changes that we put forth with the Planning and Zoning Board. Obviously those changes will come back to Planning and Zoning, because I'm sure there was some extensive rewrites of stuff, and then it'll, once kind of look through, we'll give some more time for them to review that, and then if we want to move forward with that, we would have to figure out how to do our open house kind of public hearings for changing those zoning codes. So we're getting there. Other than that, the next Wednesday I will be meeting at the League's Roundtable in Neenah with some local representatives at the state level, and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities representatives, and along with other administrators and stuff from the area to kind of talk about things that we need or would like to see. One of the things I'm trying to touch on more is housing, specific housing TIDs, in order to help with some of the harder areas for development. Nature's Haven is one of those ones that are very complex to try to get someone in there. So, yeah.
Any questions?
I got a question. So Terrace Manor, for the developers agreement, I tried tried to search while I was sitting here for the different, but we had a couple different versions and things. Is it possible that we could, the whole board could just get a copy of the finalized developers agreement so that if we are asked questions, we've got that
Yep.
information there? Thank you.
You're just gonna email us, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
just an email. I just have like
Yeah.
2 or 3 different versions of it, and I'm not sure
Mhm.
which one is the official, so.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move to G, building permit report. There is none. H, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? Nothing. Okay, we'll go to 11, communication and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News. Bob?
Nothing new.
Okay. B, Hortonville Hortonia Fire District News. Jim?
We have a meeting coming up that was rescheduled for Tuesday the 8th. It's usually on Wednesdays, but we moved it up a day because a couple of the members aren't going to be available.
July 8th.
Yes.
Okay. C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and News, it is in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association, Jane?
We are working with the circus, that we are sending the advanced clown in Monday, so you will, depending on areas of town, she's going to be, at Donaldson's, at Gilbert's, she's gonna be up at the splash pad for a while, out at Charlie's, she might stop up at the library anyway, just to make a patient visit, but,
Can we send her to Carrie's house?
No.
She's really excited about clowns.
oh my God. You don't know. Seriously, when I went to the
but
walkthrough
she'll-
of my house, there was a clown face in the closet when I did the walkthrough, and it scared the heck out of me, so I hate clowns.
Okay, well, don't be around town on Monday
I'll
afternoon.
lock my doors. I'll keep my doors locked.
But yeah, just promoting the circus, which will be the following Sunday.
Are they putting a banner up, like, on Main Street or anything, like they do for the different raffles and things that go on to
No.
promote it?
No,
Are there signs, like, around town for it, or?
there are. There's posters up and they're all over the place.
Okay, I guess I haven't, when I draw, like, nothing like on the ground, like on the corner
No.
or anything
No.
like that? You just have to go into a business to see it?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's in the papers this week, so it'll be promoted.
Any other questions? Okay, then we will move to E, senior activities. Jane?
I was not able to attend the last meeting, but Pat did submit a report.
We do have a.
Yep.
Okay. Then we will go to 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present.
The only comment I have is that Mr. Dryer had some very valid points, and I guess I'm curious to know if something can be done with that. You know, is somebody gonna talk to Tom McHugh and figure all these issues out? Or is it gonna drop after his presentation? Or no comment?
It depends on what you're talking about, right? So some of them, yeah.
Well, the weed ordinance, the noise ordinance,
The noise ordinance
there's
was
violations.
Well, the noise ordinance was addressed within the next day after I heard it, because, yeah, I think that was excessive. We don't have a construction time that is allowed for noise, so I never told him between 7 and 10. I said, you know, that's a general thing. I think most people would say is if you're gonna complain between those hours is somewhat reasonable, but, when it comes to construction, we've had it at, typically we tell people not before 6 preferably. But outside of that, the weed stuff was taken care of. That was mostly ours, as for the village, because that's kind of gonna be our parcel. It was in the right of way, so we took care of that. As for the sign stuff, that I don't know if we really have legal authority if it's well written enough to enforce. That's kind of where we're at.
Is it possible going forward to incorporate a construction agreement, just to have some guidelines? Because
Yeah.
it is ridiculous at, 10 o'clock at night for people to have to listen to that and.
Yeah, anything can be written into those developers agreements that when we have them, obviously this one won't be able to be, but
Right.
the future one, yeah, that can be added in if the board would want that in there, or any of those requirements.
I mean, that's definitely something you need to look at, because, like you said, he's a taxpayer, and having to put up with this is
No, I agree.
ridiculous. That's it.
Okay, then 13, I would need a motion to appoint a minute taker for closed session.
Nominate Shawna.
I'll second that portion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 14, I would need a motion to go into closed session.
I will make a motion to go into closed session under state statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
Second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. 15, we need a 5-minute recess to clear the meeting room. 18, any action on matters discussed in closed session? There is none. 19, I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 7:45.